Hello and welcome everybody to our webinar on virtual Gemba Walks. Today we've been joined by the good folks at OmniLab, and what we're going to talk about is Gemba Walks. And those of you from the lean world sort of know that we preach Gemba Walks sort of incessantly. But here today we're going to talk about what about if it's difficult to get to the location where you want to conduct your Gemba Walks. So we're going to talk a little bit about Gemba Walks today in a little bit of a different way, where you can attend those things remotely. What I'm going to do now is I'm recording, so just so you know, this webinar will be recorded. You'll be able to access a link that will be sent to you following the webinar to review the content of the webinar should you desire it. And also get the contact information for both Kaizen Institute and Omni Labs as we go forward. So today, you'll be speaking with myself, Chuck Cherry. I'm with Kaizen Institute. I'm the senior training consultant with Kaizen Institute. I conduct belt training programs and events for clients around North America. We also are joined by Tra Vu, who is the Chief Operating Officer from Omni Labs. Tra will be speaking to us a little bit about the equipment that you'll be seeing today during our virtual Gemba Walks webinar. What we'll go through today, we'll spend just a little bit of time in this welcome. We'll be talking a little bit more about both Kaizen Institute and Omni Labs. And then we'll go through the sort of tips and tricks for virtual Gemba Walks with a robot. Towards the end of the webinar, we'll be taking questions. Both Tra and myself will be available for any questions you may have. And those questions should be put into the chat box. Should you, on the right-hand side of your screen, you should have some kind of a screen that looks a little bit like this. If you hit the drop-down under the banner that says chat, you should be able to see a place to put your message in, and you'll be able to type in your questions, and Tra and I will take those a little bit later on. So a little bit about us. Kaizen Institute, you may recognize the word Kaizen, although not necessarily Kaizen Institute. Kaizen Institute is a consulting firm set up to help our partners with lean implementations around the globe. Our mission is to improve the world with everyone, everywhere, every day, the Kaizen way. And what we do is we encourage our organizations that we work with to really live continuous improvement. Ensure that everybody is brought into the fold where we're thinking about ways to improve the business processes that we use every day, ways to improve the work that we do, whether that's manufacturing or whether that's some type of business office process, could be insurance or fabrication. Any business that uses processes can benefit from the world of lean, and we help our clients do that. Our name is made up actually of two Japanese words, the first one being Kai, which stands for change, and then Zen, which stands for the better. Kaizen is quite often used synonymously with terms like lean or continuous improvement, and that's because the word actually does mean changing things for the better all the time. Kaizen Institute works in two different areas. We spend most of our time doing face-to-face consulting with our clients. We help them introduce lean processes and lean methodologies and lean strategies that can improve the business efficiencies of any organization. We also couple that with training and education. We do specific custom training programs for our clients. We also offer public programs. where people can come in and get what we term yellow, green, black belt types of training to enhance their knowledge of lean and their abilities for lean leadership in the organizations that they work in. We've been around for quite a while. Kaizen Institute was actually started by a fellow named Dasaki Imai, who was a colleague of Taiichi Ono and Shigeo Shingo in the early days of the Toyota production system. He established Kaizen Institute globally in 1985. We're headquartered in Zurich, Switzerland. Here in North America, we've got headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona, and in Calgary, Canada. We do business across 45 different sectors, although I challenge people to find a business sector that lean methodologies wouldn't improve. We do business on 6 continents, and we have over 45 offices around the world. We speak 30 languages, but we have just one Kaizen Institute message. No matter where you go in the world, we've got the standard message as is demanded by a continuous improvement process, and you would hear the same types of methodologies being talked about across the world. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tra, and Tra is going to speak a little bit about OmniLabs.
Thank you so much, Chuck. Thank you for having us. It's an absolute pleasure to be part of this webinar. Hello, everyone. I'm Tra. I'm the COO of OmniLabs. OmniLabs is a robotic startup in Silicon Valley. Kaizen is in our DNA from the very beginning. Continuous improvement, continuous innovation is in our DNA, and that means we build and manufacture the robots ourselves in order to control all the quality and in order to improve our product, even as it's being used. And that's a big part of our advantage, is our product and our robots are always improving. So our mission is to help facilitate the adoption and usage of service robot at scale. We have a fleet of robots. The one that we are talking about today is a telepresent robot. Chuck, I'm not able to move the slide. If you can move it to the next slide for me. Thank you so much. So like I mentioned, we are a robotics startup in Silicon Valley, and we manufacture our robots here. And we could do that because we do a combination of 3D printing, additive manufacturing, and traditional manufacturing. And that allows us to move very fast. We are able to build robots, from concept to deployment within a year. And in the past 6 years, we've been building a comprehensive library of components which allow us to take a component that would mature and plug and play in different modules. And a big part of how our robots are deployed is on the cloud. So all our robots can be upgraded over the air. It have different type of brains, like the telepresent robot brain, or it can have the autonomy modules, which allow some of the robots to be autonomously roaming and navigating its environment. During the pandemic, actually, we have used, if you can advance the slide for me, Chuck, to the next one. So our telepresent robot, the flagship model, has been in the market since 2017. And we had thousands of robots deployed in over 40 countries. In the midst of the pandemic, we started to see the usage of telepresent across manufacturing. And we use it ourselves, right? We have a manufacturing floor here in San Jose. And our own team use telepresent to conduct Gemba Walks, to have meetings and to do inspections and virtual. And a lot of our virtual meetings are done through our Omni robot. And what it does is it's a device to teleport your present in another place. So while you are in the comfort of your own home, you could actually be roaming around in a manufacturing floor, talking to your colleagues in a warehouse, or you can be inspecting devices, or you can be auditing a process. And the robot gives you that mobility, puts you in the driver's seat. It allows you to see and hear everything, and also control your own movement. So the head tilt, you have zoom function, you have share screen, and you can dial into the robot from a laptop or mobile phone because it doesn't require an app, it's device agnostic. And the robot itself can be expanded through different hardware components. So a lot of our manufacturing users need visibility kit, for example, because on the manufacturing floor, you need to be visible, right? You need to know where, make yourself known as you are coming up to a process. So a visibility kit can be expanded and added to the robot. And of course, there's collision prevention, which you can also add to the robot. And we have, in the past year, we had unlocked, of course, many use cases. I think the pandemic created a need that a lot of our customers didn't think that they would have. In the space that we've seen, education is definitely at the very top. But the industrial space has become one of our largest segment. And a lot of our customers are using it for Gemba Walks, as well as process improvement. So they started at the beginning of the pandemic thinking, okay, I need to be at the warehouse. I need to be auditing our process. However, I can't be there physically. What can I do? And they started looking into devices like telepresence solution. And for example, if you can advance the slide for me. So some of our larger clients started to use it specifically to conduct a Gemba walk, but then later on, they started to see use cases in inspection, in community engagement, in engaging their own team member into the, for example, if you have a process that will stop, a device that broke down, you really need the team to go in there and diagnose quickly. And that's how a lot of the use cases expanded. And so as we go along, today we'll focus on Gemba Walk, but I think you can start to see how the robot can be used in many use cases in the manufacturing floor. So Chuck, I think I'll give it back to you to go over the Gemba Walk.
All right, thanks, Truck. So really valuable information there. Now we're going to focus on the Gemba Walk, and we'll then see some examples of how we can use technology here along with the Gemba Walk ideas to actually be able to expand our presence throughout our organizations. So we're going to talk about, we in continuous improvement, whenever I'm doing a training program, particularly with the BELT programs, I'm continuously talking about Gemba Walks. To continuously talk about the value of managers and leaders of getting out into the place where value is created. So getting out into the Gemba. For those of you who may not know, Gemba is a Japanese word that means the place where it happens. So here we're talking about the shop floors, the office spaces, the sort of the places in our organizations where we actually create value for our customers. And it's really important for us as leaders to be seen as being out there and engaged in our continuous improvement processes. We need to model the behaviors that we expect out there in our workforce. And as a result, it's really necessary to conduct Gemba Walks, because you need to be out there seeing what the workers are actually dealing with. We need to be able to see the real things. We need to be able to see the real processes and understand what the facts are so that we can address the problems as they are and not just as the data might suggest if we're sitting back in an office looking at reams of production reports or things of that nature. We need to be able to understand what it is that our workers are facing. But what if we can't get there? Myself, my background before I joined Kaizen Institute 9 years ago, my background was in human resources. But at one time I was responsible for a major engineering and manufacturing company, and I was responsible for Western Canada. I had 11 offices under my sort of umbrella, And my KPI was to get to each one of those different locations at least once a quarter, which with 11 different locations, you can understand is once a week I was supposed to be at a different location. And sometimes the demands of my work wouldn't allow that to happen. And I'd want to be at one of the locations, but we were physically separated in some cases by, as much as a 2.5 hour airplane flight from locations from my head office. And I'd really want to be able to be there and talk to the people, but location kept me sort of planted in place. So the virtual Gemba Walk would have been a godsend. And luckily for us, we're now at a place where that can happen. So why virtual? Well, to get out there and do our Gemba Walks, uh, perhaps we're holding Kaizen events and we need to get there ahead of time to do some information gathering, and we actually want to see the place where we're going to be holding it. To avoid really extensive travel in some areas, and also as part of a help chain where you need quick reaction to problems that are happening out on the floor, it could be helpful to be able to do a virtual Gemba walk. So all of these sorts of things tie into the idea of being able to do our Gemba walks virtually. Also, when we want to get out there and do a waste walk, when we want to just get out into our offices or into our shop floors and be able to do a Muda hunting, it's handy to be able to get out there and actually move around and be able to have dialogue with people as we do our inspections. We need to be looking for the 7 wastes. For those of you who are familiar with lean processes, you probably know these by heart. But for those of you less familiar, we talk about transportation and inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction and overprocessing, or defects. We need to go out there and track down these sources of waste, and then start up our practices to be able to eliminate them and make our businesses more efficient. So we're going to have a look now at virtual Gemba Walk in action. So just bear with me for a second here, and we'll go to our clip. So what we're going to see is we're actually going to see a virtual Gemba Walk in action. You'll see one person attending via robot, talking with folks that are operating a process. Here we go. Okay, and so we're back. So what you saw there was the beginning of a Gemba walk where we were looking at a process. Some of the things that we need to do prior to actually getting out there and getting into our Gemba walk is we need to understand why we're doing it. A Gemba walk isn't management by walking around where you just are looking at things and talking to people as you run across them, etc. A Gemba walk should always have a purpose. That purpose could be to observe processes such as the clip that we just saw. It could be to observe waste, could be to observe a 5S system or organizational system that you have, or it could be a safety related Gemba walk. But have a purpose for it and prepare the team ahead of time for the Gemba walks to take place. A sure way to ensure that there's a lot of difficulty during the dialogue of your Gemba walk is to not let people know that you're coming in the first place. They shouldn't be surprise visits. They shouldn't just sort of show up in people's offices. Take the advantage of the morning huddles if that's what you're using, or whatever communication vehicle that you may use with the group that you're talking with, to prepare the team and let them know that Gemba walks are going on. When you're conducting your Gemba walk, focus on the process. Focus on the theme that you're actually following. If it's a process confirmation type of a Gemba walk, such as what we just saw in the clip, make sure that the dialogue focuses on that process and on the possible problems or waste that that process may have in it. Ask a lot of questions. Ask the workers that you're speaking with out in the Gemba, what are the problems that they face on a day-to-day basis? And then when you capture some ideas, ensure you follow up, and we'll continue on with our clips here to see that in action as well. So now we're going to go along to clip 2. Okay, so we're back. So there you saw an example in the Gemba walk of the person leading the Gemba walk going to a Kanban board and talking about some of the things that location practices from a lean point of view. And what we want to ensure that we're focusing on as we do our Gemba walks, and particularly if we're doing them virtually, we need to focus on ensuring that we're helping the folks that are out in the Gemba to see the Gemba walk-in process. Help them see opportunities to identify and get rid of waste inside of their processes. And we need to ask questions that allow the folks that we're dealing with think about lean in a way that's going to help them become more efficient and help them look for opportunities to make their jobs easier. And then finally, we want to help them do their lean practices as well. What we want to do is start coaching them to be able to identify wastes and problems that exist in their organization and actually follow up and come up with concrete countermeasures that will allow them to eliminate the sources of waste in their areas of responsibilities. Well, we're going to have a final look at a clip here. So here we'll have a look at the follow-up. Okay, so that's the clips for the virtual Gemba walk. What you would have noticed there in that last clip was the fellow in operating the robot was actually a fellow named Mike Mickelwright, who's a lean sensei, and he followed up sort of closing the Gemba walk portion of that process by asking the leader lots of questions designed to sort of encourage that leader to follow up on some of the activities that we saw there in the Gemba walk. So some of the tips that we'd like to talk about for Gemba walks is remember that we're more than a supervisor. We're more than a manager. We're more than someone who's just going out and making sure work is happening. What we need to evolve into as we go through our lean journeys are to see the managers as coaches. What we want to do is instill the behaviors and the culture in our Gembas that allow people to solve problems for ourselves. And it's a really critical aspect of the Gemba walk that we're out there more than just doing a surveillance about what's going on in the Gemba, but encouraging people to act in the continuous improvement processes that we have in our Gembas. It's more than just being a teacher even. It's encouraging people to solve problems. It's encouraging people to come up with the specific ways of viewing the processes so that they themselves are involved in our lean culture. And our goal is ongoing development for those folks. Putting building blocks together bit by bit so that as an employee evolves, they're bringing more and more of the lean thinking into their day-to-day work. It's a real employee development is a real sort of underlying foundational factor to our Gemba walks. And when we can get out there and actually do these Gemba walks and be live and be able to hold dialogue with folks and be able to sort of talk about what they're actually doing in their process right now, it's so much more valuable than you can get via a Zoom meeting. The ability to actually see what's going on in front of the worker as they're doing the work allows us to get a deeper understanding of the kind of problems that a worker may be facing as we go along. So some of our objectives, Shigeo Shingo, who was one of the instrumental sort of implementers of the Toyota production system, had this to say. There's 4 purposes to improvement, and they are easier, make it better, make it faster, make it cheaper. And those 4 goals appear in the order of priority. The first thing we want to do is make it easier. And this should be something that we're focusing on when we're going out into the Gemba and looking at the processes that we have, or whether we're talking about safety or whether we're talking about 5S or any number of reasons that you may be taking your Gemba walk. What we want to do is focus on how do we make this process easier? How do we mistake-proof these processes? How do we eliminate the waste that exists in these processes that makes life difficult for people? So how do I make it easier? And we ask questions to help people think in different ways about what it is that they're doing. What we want to do is set up our questions. We want to be asking about why do we do things a particular way, and then follow up with what could we do differently that might make this easier. Help people see that it's possible to do things in a different way, and also help them see how lean benefits can be applied in the workplace as well. How do I take some of the concepts of lean and waste reduction and actually implement it into the process that we've got going on right now? As I said earlier on when we started up the webinar, we will be holding questions and answers here in just a little while. And once again, I draw your attention, if you go to your, have a look at your control mechanism there should be a chat box in there. Feel welcome to write in any questions that you may have. We'll be getting to that in just a few minutes. So I'm going to switch this over to Tra again. Tra, go ahead and talk about the equipment that we saw in the clips.
Yeah, so during the clip, you were seeing our telepresent robot. And in the spirit of Kaizen and continuous development, we are happy to announce that we are launching the Omni Pro, which is a professional version of our flagship telepresent robot. And the reason why we started building telepresent for Omni Pro was because of all the feedback that we were receiving. So for Gemba Walk, it was perfect, but then our customers in the manufacturing space wanted to use Omni for various other use cases, including various inspection and audit and having larger gathering. And they wanted to have really loud audio. They wanted to have better long-range Wi-Fi because in the manufacturing floor, the IT, some of the AP are not as dense as in other spaces. So continuous improvement, we are improving our product, and our Omni Pro, which is designed specifically for the manufacturing floor, and it's the only product that we believe is out there for a manufacturing floor. We're launching it later this year. after this webinar, we are happy to share some more information about our pilot program, how you can get started, and we'll be following up with the details. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and we are open to answering any questions you have.
So go ahead, folks. If you've got any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat box below, or it should be on your right-hand side of your screen. Right now, I don't have any questions yet, but do feel free to go ahead with that. And either to Tra or myself, and we'd be happy to deal with them. Okay.
There are questions in the question box. Are you able to see the questions in the question box?
What is the cost of the Omni Pro? Is Ochsner using it for Gemba, and are they a reference site? You want to take that one, Tra?
Sure, I'll take that one. So Ochsner Health is using a robot to deploy their version of the Live. So they have they made their own version of the Epic system, and when they deploy Epic system, a lot of their team member needs to be on site for a few days during deployment and post deployment to help various team members get up to speed. So Ochsner use Omni Robot during this time period for deployment. And instead of having their team member being physically on site, especially during the pandemic and being there, instead they have the robot where if anyone needed support, they would request Ochsner IT team member and expert to dial into the robot, and then they conduct any additional training or answer any questions that that the staff has. And the Omni Pro itself, the Omni Pro is launching later this year. So the Omni Pro, the hardware is about $4,000, and of course we have different hardware extension kit in order to make the robot more visible. For example, like the visibility kit or the LiDAR kit to help to prevent collision and in any space. And of course, and the Omni Cloud system is very useful for our customer who needs to manage their fleet. Usually, if you have anywhere from 2 to 5, or some of our customers have over 30 or 100 robots, is you really need a way to manage your fleet. So a cloud solution system is required as well if you are interested in managing and assigning different level of access. The current flagship model is at $27.99 for the hardware, and then the full suite is about less than $5,000.
Thanks, Tra. So we've got another question here. The question goes, as you know, office work is not that straightforward to go through a Gemba walk. And I wonder if there are some tips for virtual Gemba for office work, which takes place all through computer-based tasks and handovers. Many Gemba walks for office processes do take place live in the businesses where they're taking place. I'm thinking about perhaps you may have a finance group that are on a particular floor, and you want to do a Gemba walk with them. You would actually go down into the finance floor and speak with people at their workplaces for the Gemba. But virtually as well, there are possibilities where you could do that through remote sort of applications. The one I'm thinking about, what we use here at the Kaizen Institute, we use Teams, and where it's possible to do screen sharing for computer processes or computer work. And we've been able to very successfully do some of that through the Teams environment as well. But you really can't replace that ability to sort of get a picture of the environment. the places where the people are working, sort of what the atmosphere is like there, being able to either get out there in person and sort of talk to people as they're going through their processes, or being able to get there, whether it's through a robot such as what we're talking about here today, and be able to sort of get that more sort of complete look at the Gemba is very valuable as well. So, but there are, like, if it's purely an office process, you could use one of these. There's quite a few platforms now where you can do screen sharing with people. Other questions? All right. Anything else out there for people? How do you mitigate the loud background noise on the shop floor? So there we would be talking about again the process itself. Is there methodologies to be able to mitigate background noises with the virtual robot?
Yes, so some of that is already built into the speaker system itself. Even in the flagship model, the one that is currently available right now, there is already tuning to mitigate some of the background noises. So what you were hearing in the recording is how it sounds, and that was on a manufacturing floor, which has a lot of different noises, and you can already tell that you can have a fairly good conversation. With the Omni Pro, the audio is a lot louder, and you have a quad mic array, which is going to be capturing the audio a little bit better from the speaker. So we don't have for one-on-one, which is a lot of time that's the Gemba Walk 1-on-1 or 1-to-2. It's perfectly great for use for the audio is more than loud enough for that use cases. And in addition to that, we also have ways for you to connect Bluetooth devices. So if you need to, you could connect Bluetooth speakers to make it even louder, or a way to connect so it'll be a one-on-one conversation.
Thanks, Trop. Another question that we have in, and thanks to Robert for that last one, but besides continuous improvement, what other use cases have your customers utilized in industrial or manufacturing for the robots?
Oh, the rate of use cases we were seeing was enormous. Where do I begin? I think the most interesting for me is how some of our customers became very creative with generating revenue using the robot. So, for example, showroom. Many of our customers have the manufacturing floor, the warehouses where they interact with their existing customer and their team member, but their showroom. A lot of the showroom had to be closed during the pandemic, and even now, I don't know, with the lockdown reopening, it's still not very comfortable for people to travel. And so the robot became a really good tool for potential customer to dial into a showroom. And they have full control, so they can look, at all the devices. They can have interactions with a team there. So you can have one person in the showroom, and then a lot of customer can dial in because there is a productivity suite. So the experience could be shared across different people. There's an integration with Zoom, and multiple people from a customer's organization could dial in, and you can do a fantastic showroom sessions with the customer.
Thanks, Trop. We've had a question. One of the viewers wants to listen to the webinar again. Please include a link that will enable me to do so. You will be receiving a link to the recording of this webinar. Everybody who registered for the program will be receiving the link. So look forward to that probably tomorrow. Thanks for that. Julian asked about connecting a Bluetooth mic if the environment is noisy. And I think, Tra, you said that that was possible, right?
That's correct. It is possible to connect Bluetooth devices, yes.
Okay. Laura's asking, how often does the robot need to be charged, and do you need to be on site to dock it?
Oh, that's a great question. The robot can operate around 5-6 hours on one charge. So it's more than enough to conduct Gemba Walk, having a huddle, go into meeting, inspect the product, or do project management, or of course showroom. When you're done using the robot, you can drive it to near the dock, and then the robot itself auto docks. So the robot itself doesn't require anyone to have to manage it. Like if you have a meeting, then you may need a laptop, to start like a go-to meeting. But with Omni Robot, you are in full control. As a new remote user, you are in full control. You can dial in, you can navigate the space, you can share screen, you can tilt, you can look around, you can zoom. And then when you're done, you can go to the dock and auto dock the robot and will charge.
Thanks, Tra. Mark is asking, what's the downside of the virtual Gemba? And I'll answer that one. The downside of the virtual Gemba would be that you're not getting the complete picture. Of course, the face-to-face is always the ideal situation, but sometimes the circumstances just doesn't allow that to happen. But something that we want to create between ourselves and the rest of the people that work with us in the organization is that idea that there's some kind of a relationship between the folks that are managing the organization and the people who are operating where the value is getting created, and that's best created in a face-to-face atmosphere. But sometimes it's just not possible. And this is the next best solution to that face-to-face. Being able to react quickly to problems that crop up in the manufacturing or business office workplaces is critical. And something like a virtual Gemba Walk unit, the robots that Tra is talking about, would allow us to really get in there and get eyes on it. But the downside, humans like to be with humans, and so the relationships are just a little bit more difficult to create if we're doing everything virtually all the time.
Yeah, may I add that we found that it's actually a combination. The two is best. You would, in advance of an in-person meeting, if you are able to travel in advance of an in-person meeting, you can conduct a whole lot of preparation in advance through a virtual experience, through like an Omni robot. And then you have a one-day meeting, and then afterwards, if you need to follow up, because a lot of the follow-up, you don't need to be there in person, and that would just extend the time and extend the trip. You can follow up easily through the robot. You can do a lot of other things afterwards through the robot. But I totally agree with Chuck. I think the in-person experience, if you can combine the two, you not only saving the time, but you can also engage with your team, and you can build that human connection.
Okay, thanks, Tra. Next question, Mohammed asked, as he practices lean in my company, I want to know what are the pros and cons of going virtual, because in-person Gemba walk is different than virtual, and certainly and many of the things that we just talked about there is sort of the answer to that question as well. And I'll just follow up on Tra's comment there. It would be, I can foresee the big advantages of having both available to us. And I believe that as we talk about coaching, being able to be present in person, if you can't do that, but you can be present in a timely fashion virtually. Some of the concepts of help chain, where you've got quick reaction to things that happen out in the Gemba, being important, the virtual would allow us to quickly react in a help chain reference as well. So that's also another benefit of the virtual Gemba. So just going down through the questions. I think that may be, does the robot have an obstacle sensor, Tra?
Yes, there's an extension kit that you can purchase with a LiDAR kit, because not everyone wants it. So we try to make the robot as modular as possible. If you need collision prevention, then the LiDAR kit would give you that ability.
Right. We also have a question about video quality in low Wi-Fi areas. Is there anything that that folks can do if they're using it and they're encountering some video quality issues due to signal strength being low?
Yeah, so we do try to make it as seamless as possible. I think in any video conferencing platform, including this one, is that if the connection is not as good, then the resolution goes down. Our resolution is high definition. It's 4K cameras on the display. So if your connection is great, then you'll have very crisp images and video feed. However, if your connection is not fantastic, then yes, there's some lower resolution that is there, but the experience is as seamless as possible. But okay. I would encourage anyone who does Gemba Walk when in a network area that is a little bit spotty, is you should use the snapshot function. So when you take a snapshot, there's a 4K image that is saved onto your local drive. And we found that that is very useful when we do our own Gemba Walk.
Thanks, Tra. We've also got a question about Zoom quality. What about 3x Zoom quality? What's the Zoom availability?
Yep. Right, it's 3x. You could go from up to 3x digital Zoom.
Okay.
Which is sufficient for if you are all the way from like 10 to 20 feet away, you zoom in, you should be able to read any text. And this was very important for a lot of our manufacturing customer who needed to just audit like new equipment coming in. Usually that was like a big blocker for customers who are receiving equipment, but they cannot be there to inspect it. So very, very often they just zoom into the label, reading the purchase order or the packing list, and the Zoom function allows them to read that. And they could check off on whether the packing list and the device, the equipment that they receive are appropriate.
Thanks, Tra. Do Omni robots integrate seamlessly with Microsoft Teams for cases where multiple attendees want to attend the virtual Gemba?
That's a great question. So our productivity suite, currently Zoom is fully integrated. We are working on the integration with Teams. We are on our way there. We are connected with the Microsoft development team, and we're working through that integration as we speak. So it's not quite available yet, but the Zoom integration is fully functional.
Okay. We are at a healthcare facility that uses Leader Gemba Walks as virtual and visual management boards. Historically, we have lost engagement, and I wonder if, sorry, I'm just getting some skipping here on my functionality. And I wonder if that is because leaders often are from unrelated specialties. Do you recommend leaders only round on areas in their zone of control, or is it good to walk outside areas of expertise? I think it depends on what kind of Gemba walk you're doing. If the theme for your Gemba walk is doing a 5S inspection or something of that nature, I don't think it matters a great deal what specialty the manager is that's conducting type of a Gemba walk. If it's for process confirmation, if you are actually looking at the processes that are being worked on out in the Gemba, I think it's valuable to have sort of the walker be somebody who's at least got some kind of extended responsibility for the area. If you take somebody from finance and you're putting them into an operating room, that may not be the best way of doing process confirmation. Although if what they're doing is maybe they're having a look at standards, they're looking for compliance to standards, as part of their Gemba walk, it may not matter. But if we're doing process confirmation, if we're out there talking about the problems that employees are facing every day, I think it's valuable if the Gemba walker is somebody that's connected to the area that they are in at the time. We also want to use Gemba walks to sort of give people an idea of who they're working for as well. So, you know, having the people who are at the senior manager, director level getting out into the Gemba to talk to people and sort of connecting the continuous improvement process to the from senior management through to the place where the work happens is very valuable as well. It can be difficult at times to connect a director of operations with the process where, you know, we're winding a couple of screws into a device of some sort. But just elevating the sort of the idea that everybody is involved in continuous improvement is still very valuable. I hope that answers the question that the person was asking. Okay. Okay, so this might be the last question that we deal with today. How effective does this work for a fast-paced distribution center that has racking, etc.? Also, what about camera angles and things of that nature? Tra, have you placed these units in high, sort of fast-paced environments?
Yes, we have. In fact, I mean, 100 robots were deployed at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona recently. So if you talk about fast pace, that is as fast as it gets. The field of view is about 170. So it's a little fisheye lens. At first, it's you may need to get used to a little bit at first, but the moment that you get used to it, you'll see that it actually provides you a much better range of view. And we find that in our with working with our customer in the manufacturing space, they actually really appreciate the fact that you can have such a wide range view. And there's also a down camera which show you the view of the base. And so the combination of the two camera gives you a very wide view. And this is especially important when you come approaching certain areas where certain intersections. The view give you a really good look if there's any incoming traffic.
Great. Thanks, Tra, for that. So with that, we're going to close out the webinar. I want to thank everybody for attending, and also thank you to the folks who asked questions. We really appreciated the opportunity to interact, and hope you enjoyed the webinar. It will be a link to the webinar will be sent out to everybody, likely tomorrow, who registered for the program. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and enjoy the weekend if you have one coming up. And we'll talk to you all through the recording soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Please take care and please stay safe.